Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney here at the R&R Law Group in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona. And today, my goodness, we're talking about the Ottawa plot. We talked a lot about this yesterday. Yesterday, there was a premiere on this channel that was about 35 minutes where we went through an emergency city council meeting that several people there from the Ottawa City Council, several people from the police agency, right? So we have Chief Sloly, the police chief, his inspector, and his deputy chief. And then we had several people from this police civilian oversight board that all smashed their heads together because they wanted to bring an end to this Freedom Trucker Convoy 2022 that is taking not only Canada and America and North America and the Western Hemisphere, but also the globe by storm because people are tired of the COVID pandemic lunacy. And so this emergency meeting convened yesterday, and my goodness, there was some very interesting stuff that came out of this. Basically, what we're seeing is the government, and this is Ottawa, right? Ottawa City Council. And so for those of you in the United States, right, this is like DC, like Washington, DC is taking this action, okay, just to bring this a little bit closer to home for some of us. They are calling these people insurrectionists. They're proposing mass arrests, and I'm not even joking about this. Yesterday on that premiere, there's a woman, her name is Diane. She's been on the city council since 1994. She's a lifelong bureaucrat, and she was literally trying to try to thread the needle by proposing to the city attorney a mechanism whereby she could conduct mass arrests, literally. She's, going one by one and, writing tickets like individually, it's a lot of work. Is there anything we can do to just sort of, kind of go around that and just start rounding everybody up? And so fortunately yesterday, the city attorney said, no, we can't do that. But they are, of course, who they are, and they're going to continue forward. They're not going to be deterred from one city attorney. And so they had another meeting today. Now, the meeting that took place on emergency last night was very sort of, it wasn't full. It wasn't the full team. The entire city council was there. This was like a subcommittee, sort of like what we have here in Congress, a subcommittee before they report back to the full House. Same thing happened last night. And then today now they reconvened. And so they had a full city council meeting today. And my goodness, it was a doozy. Yesterday, we had one woman literally begging the police, like begging, please, I'm begging you, please help. And he's like, I know you're scared, and we're going to be here to solve all of this. She's back. She's a little less hysterical today, but she's back. And so she gets 5 minutes. We're going to spend full 5 minutes on her because my goodness, this woman is just hysterical, and it's hilarious to watch. It's hilarious in that she's so hysterical. It's not hilarious that she is the leader of city council that's dictating policy for a huge swath of her country. So a lot of problems there. I don't want to be too flippant about any of this. But my point is, we've got a lot to get to. And if you want to be a part of the show, the place to do that is over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. They're chatting away over there. Shout outs to Russell Warren. We've got B-Spec, Radices there. We've got Tweaks in the house, TOS forever. And so there is a comments form that looks like this, and we'll take questions on the comment form. We're also having super chats come in. They pop themselves right up on the screen just like this. That was from Barry Cream, yes please, yesterday on the premiere, says they call themselves leader of the free world. What a joke, which is true. And we're going to see more of that today. Jay said, do you think the wider public sees the blatant hypocrisy and double standards coming out of Canada and U.S. governments? I think that they're starting to see it. Yeah, it really is becoming a lot more prevalent. And when you see these people, right, when you see really what they believe and how they act, this facade that they are good leaders who are doing things in the interest of their constituents, I think evaporates. You realize that most of these people are just way in over their heads. And so if you're a member, a supporter on YouTube, of course, we get the custom gifts if you're there. We know that the latest one that was added was the Freedom Trucker Convoy special edition gift down there in the bottom left. And we have a new edition, which is the Canada flag special edition for the Freedom. Let it ring true, because I keep seeing that they're saying that there's a lot of racist flags out there. And I've been watching Viva. I've been watching other streamers on YouTube. Haven't seen any of it. If you're a member, you also get a badge, which is pretty cool. And we've got some YouTube shout outs. I apologize. I did not update this today, but shout outs to Mr. J-Bug, Blue Bunny, Ricky Bishop, Henry Dixon, and of course, Wolfgang Deo in the house. If you want to join, this is the join button. And without any further ado, Let's get into it, shall we? The mayor of Ottawa, Jim Watson, he opened up the city council meeting and he was very, very aggressive with his language today. He goes on for about 5 or 6 minutes. This entire proceeding is about 4 hours. Now, it was still going when I started this show, but we were sort of winding down and they were asking some of the same questions that they were asking 3 hours ago, because that's really what this is. And as we go through this city council meeting, one of the things I wanted to sort of propose as a framing of this is, we've all gone to history school or history classes, right? Civics class and social studies. And we've spent time reading the books and, what did George Washington do? And what did these amazing leaders do throughout history? And how did they govern themselves when they were faced with problems? What did Abraham Lincoln do, right? When he's sort of sitting there toiling over what to do about the future of the nation. Like a real crisis. What happened when Pearl Harbor happened, right? Regardless, without politicizing it, right? I'm sure Canada has many of those same sort of historical moments of significance like we do here. And it doesn't matter what it is, right? We all have these things that we have in our history books. But when those people in those times were faced with really catastrophic problems, I got to ask myself, how did they comport themselves? How did they handle those difficult situations? Did they sound like this? I mean, was it a bunch of people that sounded like this? Now, we haven't listened to anything yet, but ask yourself that, right? That's what I was asking myself. Is this what leadership looks like? Are these the best and brightest, not only in Canada, right? Our government here in the United States is just as bad as this, if not worse. And it's the same sort of pattern, right? These are the people who are in charge. These are the people who are running things. All right, let's listen in here. This is Ottawa City Council. This is Jim Watson, the mayor of Ottawa. And he's just going to set the tone for this thing, which is like 4 hours of self-congratulatory backpatting from all of these city council members. Let's listen in.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Bon après-midi, tout le monde. These are difficult and unprecedented times for the City of Ottawa and our residences and businesses, and particularly those in the areas directly affected by the ongoing truck convoy occupation.
That's their stream, not ours.
What was initially described as a peaceful protest has now turned into a siege of our downtown area.
Okay, siege.
As we convene for this special meeting today, I'm asking all members of council to continue to work with our municipal, provincial, and federal partners to find ways to regain control of our city.
All right, so regain control. So you hear that type of language, right? Regain control. And so they're framing this in terms of like war footing. Right? We've actually lost our city. We got to regain control. And as we go through this, you're going to hear a lot of this. You're going to hear them talking about regaining territory and cutting off supplies and blah, blah, blah.
We must continue to work with our partners, municipal partners.
All right, so that kind of stops after this first clip.
This declaration serves notice to our residents that we will do everything in our power to take back the streets of Ottawa from the criminal activity and hooliganism that has transpired over the last 9 days. Initially, this was labeled as a protest against the public health policies that democratically elected governments at the provincial and federal levels have enacted to protect us from the deadly COVID-19 pandemic.
All right,
but sadly, the demonstration has turned into an aggressive and hateful occupation of our neighborhoods, which has absolutely nothing to do with the truckers' quarrel against vaccine mandates enacted by the governments of Ontario and Canada.
Has nothing to do with this.
Most of these people would react with.
Okay, so you can see their stream's pretty bad. So if we skip over to the next one, it starts to clean up a little bit. But you can see, now this is the good one. This is where he talks about words and symbols of hatred and racial and homophobic harassment. And he talks about living in fear for 9 days. Okay, now look, again, I don't know what it's like to be in Ottawa, Canada right now. I don't. I've seen what it looks like from Viva's streams and others, but that's it, okay? But let's listen to what this guy is describing, all right? And you can tell me if it's even remotely connected to reality. Here it is.
Horns late into the evening. And let's not forget the words and symbols of hatred that we have witnessed during this occupation. Confederate flags, Nazi flags, racial and homophobic harassment towards our own residents. In a city that rightfully prides itself on being caring and compassionate.
They all look like that.
These acts and the occupation are having damaging and long-term impacts on the well-being and health of our residents. People are living in fear and are terrified, and they've now been subjected to the non-stop honking of large trucks for 9 days, which is tantamount to psychological warfare.
Warfare?
They have harassed and spat on grocery clerks for simply asking them to wear a mask. The staff and women seeking emergency shelter at Cornerstone are experiencing anxiety and distress to the point where many clients have had to be admitted to the hospital to seek help. The delivery of critical chemotherapy medication was canceled for a woman living in downtown Ottawa because the delivery company didn't think they could get it to her.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so 9 days living in fear. It is psychological warfare at this point. The tooting of the horn there, man, is driving these people bananas. Psychological warfare. He said that. Terrified, long-lasting impacts. It's been 9 days. Now, I think somebody else quantifies it at 11 days later, so the day zero is up for anybody's guess. But I was thinking about this. Listen, they all told us that 14 days was not a big deal at all. 15 days in some places, right? 15 days to slow the spread. That's all. Just stay home for 15 days. No problem. You don't have to leave. Just deal with it. If you're going a little bit crazy, it's okay. It's only 15 days. Don't worry about it. They're on day 9, and he says they're under psychological warfare and under duress from foreign occupiers. It's like, hey, lunatics. We told you these sort of lockdown orders are pretty tough there, buddy boy. But the point of all of this, okay, it's not reality, right? We've seen pictures. We've seen everybody who has been streaming from time to time, going up and trying to talk to protesters. And it's just a fraction of anybody that is actually there. The signs that we've seen are overwhelmingly Canadian flags. I've played clips of people here dancing around in the street, singing Canadian anthems and, singing to, I don't know. It looks like a fun time. It looks like a great place to be. Doesn't look like at all anything that he said. Racist, terrorism, living in fear, all of that nonsense, including psychological warfare. So you can see where this is going. Okay, this is the mayor of the city, the mayor of Ottawa, and he's just warming up the crowd. The rest of these councillors are just like, oh, I can't wait. I'm coming up soon, baby, and wait till I get going. So he tells us about a woman who was in chemotherapy, and the delivery people who were going to bring her the thing didn't bring her the thing. So hopefully they, came back the next day and brought it to her and she does okay. But here now, he's going to tell us about one of these most horrific stories that has really malicious intent. That could have been, it wasn't actually that big of a problem because they just took care of it, but it could have been something that ended very differently. And that requires everybody to just, I don't know, give up all essential liberties and just roll over and start bending, all sorts of things like due process and what have you. Here is Mr. Watson telling us, one of these most horrific possibilities that could have gone really bad.
Yesterday, we learned of a horrific story that clearly demonstrates the malicious intent of these protesters occupying our city. At 5 a.m., and this was captured on the building's video, on Sunday morning, 2 young the lobby of the building on Lisgar Street, where they proceeded to light fire starter bricks near the elevators before taping up the door handles so residents would struggle to get out during a fire. Thankfully, no one was hurt, but this story could have ended very, very differently. It's extremely disturbing and points to a desire to harm our residents and obvious criminal intent, which I know the Ottawa Police Arson Unit is now investigating.
Okay, good.
I cannot stress this enough.
Good.
I hope this message gets through to the truckers. The lives of individual, innocent people are at stake right now, right here.
Good. Well, good. I hope they do investigate it. The arsonist team is on it, and I hope they find out who that person was and bring them to justice. And we can ask that person whether they're a trucker or not. Probably gonna guess not, because that is what has been the trend on this. And we talked about this in another video that I released earlier, I think last week. It was about the 2 trucker liaisons. One of them was a former RCMP agent, somebody who actually was providing intel to law enforcement so that they could go and make those arrests. And after they made those arrests, CBC publishes several people were arrested related to the protests. And you go, yeah, no, they weren't related to the protest. They were there, sort of related as a counter protest or as somebody who was undermining the efforts, but he wasn't part of the protest. But everybody's been manipulating that to make that the case. And so now we get to here. He's going to be detailing some of what the city has actually accomplished. Here is Mr. Watson. He's going to be talking about, I don't think this is Sloly yet. Let's see.
Sloly and the Ottawa Police Service have been doing everything in their power to bring this demonstration to a safe and peaceful end quickly and safely as possible. Over the course of the last few days, progress has been made towards reclaiming parts of our city. On Saturday, officers were able to clear Confederation Park, which has now been secured and fenced. Dangerous stockpiles of gas and propane, 3,200 liters of gasoline, as well as vehicles were seized when Ottawa Public Police Service officers descended on the baseball stadium parking lot yesterday evening. Anyone caught trying to replenish supplies in the red zones is now being arrested and charged with aiding in illegal activity. 7 people were arrested in total yesterday. Over 60 investigations are currently underway with respect to criminal activity associated with this occupation. And although we are grateful for and have started to welcome additional officers on loan to the city from the RCMP, the OPP, and other forces, we need more reinforcements.
We need more reinforcements because they conducted 7 arrests total. Yeah, things are about wild over there. Things are getting out of control. So the red zone now, we're not talking about Iraq. We're talking about Ottawa. They've got red zones now. Okay, because they're under occupation. Got it. All right, so this continues on. Now, look, like, folks, this would be, like, hysterical if this were not real, right? These are real people in government in charge of a lot. And we were talking about this a long time ago. We were talking about this at the beginning when all this started. It's going to just be a matter of time until they say this is an insurrection. And my friends, it's here right now. Here he is. This is overturn. What this is now, it's not just in occupation. It's overturning democratically elected governments. You understand? We're used to this in the United States. We have a whole stinking committee that's devoted to this. A whole fake political committee. It's starting now. What the truckers are doing, according to this lunatic, overturning democratically elected governments. Here it is.
We'll be writing to Premier Ford and Prime Minister Trudeau later today to convey Chief Sloly's request and ask them to help us dramatically increase our law enforcement capacity as quickly as possible. I ask that you not take our request lightly, as the situation on the ground remains highly volatile and the demonstrators are vowing to stay until they overturn the decisions of democratically elected governments, both on Parliament Hill and at Queen's Park.
Overturn. They're going to overturn a democratically elected government. Insurrectionists. We have those here. We have what's called the Capitol Hill Police, who are now setting up shops, federal police in different local, cities all throughout America. And big swaths of this country are like clapping, like dumb seals. Oh, good. More feds in my backyard. Really happy about it because it's their political enemy. And so it's a very useful tool if you can get it. If you're sort of an authoritarian government and you're able to latch on to an oppositional force like MAGA or like the truckers or whatever, then it gives you a lot of power, because then you can use all the levers of government to continue to sort of enrich yourself further and solidify your political base. So that's what they're doing here. Now, they've got some pretty interesting tactics that they want to use. You saw in that prior clip that they're going to be asking Justin Trudeau and others for a lot more resources and forces, and I'm sure that that is going to come. We already heard yesterday at that city council meeting that they are delivering another 250 RCMP agents coming over to jump into to helping them. And today we're going to hear that they're rolling out a bunch of new tactics. Here is from Mr. Watson, who's going to be asking the judges in some cases to double the fines, in some cases to triple the fines, in some cases to 10x the fines, 10x, so that the truckers finally get it. And hey, apologies, I think I botched the Rumble stream. I'm looking over there and I don't think I can fix that right now. But I am not streaming on Rumble. I apologize. I forgot to do the connection. I was skidding in here. Ugh, bonehead, idiot. All right. Sorry about that, Rumble. Okay, so let's go over here. Now, this is the mayor of Ottawa, who is now going to be really encouraging massive increases in fines. Here he is.
In order to assist our bylaw officers in their challenging task of ensuring our municipal bylaws are enforced, the city has asked the Chief Justice of Ontario to increase fines for many unlawful acts we have witnessed in our downtown court. The request was to increase the fines for idling from $100 to $1,000, the noise bylaw fines from $490 to $1,000, and the fines for encumbering a roadway from $350 to $1,000. Chief Bylaw Officer Roger Chapman has confirmed that the Chief Justice of Ontario was supportive of our request and is committed to enacting these higher fines as soon as possible. I want to take this opportunity to thank all members of council who are feeling the stress and anguish of their residents, particularly in those zones where demonstrations are at their highest. That includes my thanks to Councillor McKenney in Somerset Ward and Councillor Fleury and Rideau Vanier.
Yep. So you can see almost, in some cases, literally 10xing the fine. So if you're just idling now, it's a $100 fine. Nobody cares. Now, $1,000. And as city council, right, they can pass these ordinances, I would presume. I'm not a licensed attorney anywhere in Canada, but that's how things work more or less here. You know, they can pass, like, for example, we've got, you know, the city of Arizona that has statutes. We have the city of Scottsdale that has city code ordinances. Same way that they could. Scottsdale could just immediately pass a city ordinance that says this is now ultra illegal and we're going to ultra penalize things and sort of push things to the max cap penalty that they could get. But they haven't done that yet. And so they're processing some of those solutions. Now, whether that impacts, this in any ultimate way is to be seen, because they still have to cite all of those people and they still have to process them through the criminal courts. And so, yes, even though it might look good on law and on paper, is it really good in practice? That's what they're going to have to determine. And so, but you can see, right, all of these little bureaucrats are sort of moving the chess pieces around to try to figure out what to do about this whole situation. That's the mayor saying that they are literally engaged in psychological warfare. The city is under siege. We need ultra help to come make sure that this does not overturn a democratically elected country. Wow. Well, shocking. So he turns this over now to Police Chief Sloly. Sloly, very dramatic guy. We heard a lot of him yesterday. He's back. And here's what he had to say. He's going to be detailing, remember in a prior video, he had a 3-part plan that he came up with to try to put an end to all this. Part 1 was, the surge of the police officers. So he's going to do this surge activity where they're going to go and sort of go to a very high concentrated area and clamp down on all of the criminality. Number 2 is going to be blockades using concrete barriers and trying to sort of stop the movement from happening so that they could disperse the truckers and reclaim some land. And then number 3 was really focused on intelligence and sort of going after some of the funding and after insurance companies and trying to attack these individuals' professional licenses. And so he deployed that last week on Friday, and now he's going to be providing an update on that. What have we accomplished here, says Sloly? Well, we're doing everything we possibly can. Hold on, everybody. Hold tight. Here's what he says.
The command and I announced a surge and contain strategy in an effort to end material support and supplies to the demonstrators, while also increasing our intelligence and enforcement operations for unlawful and unsafe demonstrator behavior. We are doing everything we can possibly do to end this demonstration safely, lawfully, and quickly to protect the residents of Ottawa and our businesses. We are learning literally day by day from our experiences as we gather more intelligence and insights, as we lay charges and make arrests, as we enforce and find out our capabilities, as well as the capabilities of those who are resisting and engaging in unlawful activity. We are doing everything we can on a daily basis to acquire more resources in the most practical and immediately impactful way. And as they become available and are deployed in our streets, we redeploy our resources to provide better services and safety to the immediately impacted areas, as well as to the rest of the city.
All right, so he is kind of going through this theme a lot at the start of his presentation here. I think they give him 7-10 minutes at the start of this before they start fielding questions from all of the other city councilors. And this theme from him is much the same. Okay, we're doing everything we possibly can, because yesterday at the emergency meeting, he was just getting lambasted all over the place. And that's really sort of I think the governance style of many of these city council people. It's just to sort of throw their hands in the air and kind of stomp their feet. And we're mad, and our constituents are mad. And not really be people who solve problems, but rather kind of talk about problems and then spend money on problems and then spend more money on problems. And so on and on it goes. And so he came out strong. He's like, listen, before you start swinging your elbows at me, we're doing everything we can. All right. So just relax. And he continues on. Now, he does provide them with some information, and he sort of is gleeful about that GoFundMe problem. Remember that thing that happened? Oh, yeah. When they attempted to steal $9 million, and then several attorney generals are out there now saying, oh, that's a problem. That sounds unethical and almost like fraud. Maybe we should investigate you. And then GoFundMe comes out and says, oh, we changed our opinion on how to handle this. We're just going to go ahead and refund everybody on our own. You don't have to go fill out that stupid form. We're not ready for you yet. Hold on. All right. He started to try to talk and I hit the button and not ready for him yet. But we are now because I lost my train of thought. All right. So we're talking about GoFundMe. And he is now going to be telling how excited he is about the fact that this whole thing got busted up. Here he is.
As of this morning, I can report the following activities and efforts over the weekend. The end of the GoFundMe, almost $10 million denied to the demonstrations.
Yeah, you thieves.
Advise, while that effort was successful, almost immediately other efforts to fundraise, other platforms around which funds were made available have popped up, and that is an increasing challenge. A significant success between the city and the service in ending the GoFundMe, but there needs to be ongoing efforts at all three levels of government to deny funding to the unlawful demonstrations. The end to the occupation and encampment in Confederation Park. That was done entirely through the efforts of Liason.
All right, so we're going to get to that one next. But you could hear him, right? The end of GoFundMe was a big success. Very happy about that. Thank you. And we talked about this because City Councilor Diane Deans, the woman who's been there since 1994 for crying out loud, was very aggressive, saying, GoFundMe, please cut these terrorists off. They're insurrecting our city. And they did, man. They did. They tried to actually take that away from them and try to reallocate it to a charity where they would have some say in where it goes. And if they get to say where it goes and they say, if the truckers can't say exactly where it goes, is it really their money? Not really. And so that was the big problem. And now they're going to just automatically refund it all, which is the right move. Now, of course, all of this has gone over to Give, Send, Go. I think people are trying to get their heads around, using crypto and some sort of decentralized solutions for funding, which is, not a bad idea. But that is his report. So a big success. GoFundMe's down. $9 million has been diverted. But that's temporary. Probably going to come back if they need it. And so he says, I want more of that, right? I continue on. Please keep going after all of these institutions. And so we'll see how much backbone some of them do have. He continues on. Now, he's providing updates to City Council. They're stomping their feet. They're screaming, hemming and hawing about how bad this whole situation is. And he's going to be telling them, look, we are actually making progress, okay? We're going to be dismantling areas. There's seizure of propane that's happening and gas cans and all this stuff. But they're kind of taking it back, just so you know. Here's what he says.
Members and negotiation, including the support of Indigenous elders, to try to find a peaceful, safe resolution. Over the course of 36 hours, with the participation and partnership of Mr. Toby Nussbaum and his team, we were able to get a negotiated, peaceful settlement. No injuries, no deaths, no riots. We're able to remove all people, all containers, all gas and incendiary devices, all chattels from the area, and pack it up on flatbreads and get it out of the area. Fence in the area to reclaim it. There was an additional major operation over the last 24 hours to dismantle the Coventry Road staging area, which included arrests of 7 individuals in criminal charges, the seizure of thousands of liters of propane and gasoline, including a full tanker of gas, ongoing investigations and ongoing efforts to hold that property that we were able to take last night. Please know that in the ensuing hours overnight, there have been several major efforts by demonstrators to reclaim all of Coventry, and we have active operations to secure that for any further ability to stage and supply from that area.
These guys are fighting over territory in Ottawa, right? Reclaiming land and fighting over territory, and we got them barricaded. We pushed them out, but the Confederacy is gaining ground, and so we need more Union soldiers to fight back against the Confederates. My gosh. And so that is just something that continues. Now he goes on. We're almost through this guy. I know it's a lot. And I try to deviate from person to person so we just don't get just a litany, but he's got a lot to say. And so we've got to listen to it. So he's telling us now that they are sending flatbed trucks in, doing everything we can to bring this to a close. And he calls it, of course, a demonstration of an occupation and an insurrection. Says the whole thing's unlawful and unacceptable. And then we've got one more from him.
Parliamentary Protection Services and Public Safety Canada for the additional logistics of cement barriers and flatbed trucks to move those barriers to contain the ground that we are taking through enforcement operations. No one should misunderstand what I'm saying. We are doing everything that we can to bring this to a lawful and safe end. This unacceptable and unlawful demonstration must end. And that includes efforts over the past week Once we realized this had moved from a demonstration into some form of occupation, and as others have framed it, an insurrection.
Whoa.
We are doing everything we can to engage all three levels of government, not just from a policing and law enforcement and justice standpoint, but all three levels of government to provide whatever supports they can to this city and this service.
Yeah, and they're gonna run with this, boys and girls, man. They are doing this here in the United States. Once you go into insurrection territory, you kind of can't go back from that. You know, once the capital is under siege, once your capital city is under siege, that's kind of the whole ball game, right? I mean, that's where we're at. We've got fake select committees. We've got an ongoing war against an entire political opposition party. And so they get to do that now. That's really convenient for them. It's very, very useful tools for authoritarian governments. My goodness, getting all flustered up over here. Calm down. All right, so let's carry on. I think we've got a couple more clips from him because this stuff is useful. Now he's going to say that some people are using the sort of language that what Ottawa City Council is doing here is actually inciting things, right? Escalating the hostilities, making it worse intentionally, trying to cause people to sort of, react and cause a problem so that they can now come back with a heavy hand of, let's say, the military or something like that, or for some other reasons, right? Increase the stakes on them so that the truckers break. And some people would say, well, that's not true. Our government would never want to do that. But here he is saying, we do want to increase the stakes. In fact, he uses that very language. Now, he talks about it in terms of noise and parking bylaws and increased penalties and these types of things. Those are increasing the stakes against the truckers, but it's also increasing the potential consequences against the truckers and their livelihoods, right? This is a very unique situation because the truckers have commercial driver's licenses, CDLs, very different ball game than you have with a regular non-commercial driver's license. And so a lot of these things, right, if they get certain penalties that attach to that CDL license, that might make them unemployable down the line, right? And so these are very serious consequences for people. And while some of this can be fun and games, right, from time to time, I got to think about these things. Because if they do latch on, right, these people might be dealing with these consequences. They might come back down to the United States. United States Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration says, oh, what are all these points on your license? What are all these records, blemishes? Where'd those come from? Oh, well, it's because our psycho government in Ottawa decided to increase the penalties for parking to a, multi-year prison offense, insurrection, whatever. And those people have livelihoods and families they got to provide for, right? And so you can see how these consequences can snowball, and it makes me a little bit nervous. So I want to make sure that we're paying attention to what they're saying they're going to do, because you have to take them at their word. Here's what he says. They're going to increase the stakes and increase the penalties because officers are strained.
Resources we're requesting will first increase the stakes to the unlawful demonstrators. We are requesting of the City of Ottawa to make changes to bylaws such as the noise bylaw, parking bylaws that can be done immediately or in the next few days. We've heard some of that information already in the mayor's comments, and I suspect we'll hear further from City Manager Kanalakis and his excellent team. We would like the city to implement daily emergency operations center meetings and to coordinate a whole of city response. We've had excellent, I want to repeat, excellent cooperation, coordination, and communication with Steve Kanalakis, the city council, the mayor, and his staff to date. We're looking to see if we can even raise that bar further. Second, our operations remain significantly strained. All of our officers remain on active duty. Many of our officers have gone more than 14 days in a row without a day off, often working 10, 12, 14, 18-hour days in the coldest winter we've had in 10 years, the bulk of which in minus 20 and 30 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, so he's recognizing, it's an interesting sort of thing to watch. He's saying that we are ultra strained, right? Our officers are ultra strained, very high pressures, and he's sort of not connecting that maybe is how the truckers felt or the truckers feel when they were put under the pressure of their government, right? So, policies and decisions have consequences both directions. They're only concerned about their side. They're not concerned about these occupiers at all. But he is saying that we are under such high pressure. We're under a lot of stress. Everybody is strained. We're working long hours. Nobody has had a break. But let's go ahead and raise the stakes on the truckers. We're going to go ahead and increase the penalties, the bylaws. We're going to ask you to change a bunch of stuff so we can make it harsher on them. because that's going to resolve the situation. And as we talked about on the video yesterday from their emergency council meeting, almost nobody except Bev Johnson is asking about talking with the truckers. No negotiations. Justin Trudeau fled the scene and then has since been hiding out like our president usually does, not addressing anything. We have one more clip, I think, or one or two of this police chief. He's going to now be telling us that they are going to want more than double the amount of boots on the ground. So we have the Ottawa police. He wants double that, more than double. Here's how that sounds.
To maintain current operations and take meaningful action in the red zone occupation areas, as well as in the active demonstration areas that are most traumatic and most troubling to our residents and businesses, we are asking for an additional 1,800 police and civilian personnel.
All right, listen.
1,800 police and civilian personnel.
That's a lot.
To put that into some perspective, the entire amount of members of the Ottawa Police Service is 2,100. The entire amount of police officers in the Ottawa Police Service is 1,200.
So 1,200 boots on.
We're asking for 1,800 police and civilian resources for our immediate use within our incident command umbrella.
So we'll get to third, but he says, we'll get to number 3, but he says that they want, so 1,200 boots on the ground, 2,100 total, 1,200 boots on the ground, and then they want another 1,800 on top of that. It's a lot of people, a lot of additional law enforcement officials out there. And with the increased penalties and with some of those increased consequences, right, they're really excited about going and rounding everybody up. And it's not just that. They're not just going to stop there. They also want to go after all of the financial institutions because they're giddy about what happened with GoFundMe. They just asked for a favor and GoFundMe just tapped their tap dance right over to the tune that they wanted and did it. And so they thought, oh, we're high. We're all very, high and mighty now after this. And maybe we can do this again. Sloly is saying go after all of them. Go after insurance companies, gas companies, any of their private trucking associations. Essentially what he's saying is, councilors, do what you can to get all of these people fired. Here's how that sounds.
Although policing is part of the solution to this demonstration, it is not the only part. We are requesting that the city utilize its convening power to engage financial institutions, insurance companies and associations, gas companies and associations, trucking companies and associations, local BIAs, anything that can be done to restrict the material and financial support going to the demonstrators. We're asking the city to convene and explore additional enforcement tools from all 3 levels of government, municipal, provincial, and federal, laws and regulations and orders that may include areas, but not limited to, public health, environment, and transport.
Yep, everything.
I want to again express, as many on this call already have, and I'm sure as we go through each council, each of you will express on behalf of your constituents and your families. This is unacceptable, and it has hurt our community. It has hurt families. It has hurt individuals. It has hurt members.
All right, so he goes off and off and off and off and off. I was wondering if I let that go on, and I didn't, because he goes on, right? It's a lot of bloviating, a lot of sort of, I know you care. I know you care. You guys are great, and I know you care, and they do the same thing. I know you're working hard, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but that's what we get, right? After they want everything. They want financial institutions. They want people, rounded up because they feel like they're under occupation. And finally now, we're going to get on to somebody else. So we start going around the city council. Remember, this is kind of a city council meeting. We had the emergency meeting yesterday. On Sunday night, we talked about that. Here, this is a full council meeting. And so now that we have an update on what the plan is and sort of what the latest updates are, we get some motions from the city council members who are going to be explaining what they want to do. And so now this is one of our first motions, I think, from a council person named, I think Kings is his last name. And he's going to be talking about how racist this whole thing is. Let's listen to this.
We'd like to get Councillor King's motion on the screen, and then we'll
Councillor Kings is going to come up.
Introduces it, seconded by Councillor.
He's got a motion. Now, I think it's more like a declaration. He's going to read through it for us.
Whereas we acknowledge that the display of Confederate flags.
Okay, so he's starting at the top. Let's just pause on this and let's see if we can see what this says here. Moved on, it's a motion by, so we don't actually have a title of the motion, but you can see he's going to read it for us. I don't need to read it. Let's listen.
David and swastikas during the illegal occupation of the city of Ottawa is traumatizing to members of vulnerable communities, especially from the Black, Jewish, Muslim, or racialized communities and members of the two-spirit, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex communities who continue to be marginalized by acts of hate and violence, whereas the use of racist and anti-Semitic flags and xenophobic symbols, the mockery of indigenous culture, and the harassment and denigration of residents within the two-spirit, lesbian, gay.
What is the two-spirit? I've never heard of that one.
Intersex community clearly shows that this illegal occupation has not been peaceful, whereas defacing national and
okay, so you get the point. Okay, so you get it right now. There's some things I don't recognize in there, which is interesting. But I don't know what some of those acronyms were. But okay, so that's right. This is racist, whereas we now resolve, be it enacted, City Council member on February 7, 2022, that a bunch of racist right-wingers invaded our city. Got it. Anybody second the motion? All of them. Anybody vote in favor of it? All of them. You know? Any opposed? No, because that person's a racist and they already threw them out on their butts a long time ago. All right. So this I think we have enough of that one. Now let's go over to Deans.
Councilor Deans, please.
Councilor Deans. Oh, yeah, Councilor Deans. So Councilor Deans is probably one of my favorites. She's number one or number two because of how she talks. It's really, really wild.
Thanks,
here.
Mr. Mayor, and thank you to everyone on the call today and all of those people that are working to end this insurrection in our city. I had a number of questions, but I think I'm going to try and be very brief here because I know
the volume's a little bit low on this. Let me see if I can pick this up just a smidge. Give me 1 second because I'm not sure why this is a little bit low. Let's see if I can turn this up. And I know you're waiting. Apologies. All right, so we're going to
by asking about those, Jerry.
All right, let's try this one more time. Might be a little bit better.
Councilor Deans, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to everyone on the call today and all of those people that are working to end this insurrection in our city.
You'd like to.
Come on.
Councilor Deans, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to everyone on the call today and all of those people that are working to end this insurrection in our city. I had a number of questions, but I think I'm going to try and be very brief here because I know that the service has important work to be doing. But I was going to start by asking about those jerry cans, but I think what's really becoming evident is that this is an organized, professional, sophisticated organization. These are not people from, some small community
now listen.
in Alberta that came to Ottawa to, air a grievance about vaccine mandates or border policies. This is far beyond this. This is an international effort coming out of the primarily, I believe, the United States of America.
What?
That is intended to disrupt our democracy locally. And you can see the sophistication and the effort that is happening here with their tactics. These are brazen tactics, the likes of which we have never seen in this country before. And they're escalating. And so I hope the upper tier governments have heard the cries from the police service and from the city of Ottawa today that we need all hands on deck to help this, because this is a major event, the likes of which we've never seen. And I agree with all those
oh my God
about freedom. This is not freedom, what they are fighting for. They are fighting to take away our democracy and overthrow our government. That's what they're doing in a nutshell.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so first of all, I think she just blamed the United States, which is, very offensive. That's rude. It's not very Canadian. We don't like that down here. And so she's saying it's all our fault because it's from an international effort. It's like this international cabal that's highly sophisticated and creating a situation the likes of which she's never seen before. Brazen tactics. Don't get brazen with me. What is she talking about? I told you she was good, right? I mean, it's like crazy. It's like lunatic level 11 out of 10. I mean, it's really, really nuts. I think like every single talking point, like if you sat down and you got like a board game where you have to list all of the things that a hyperventilator person might say, she got like 9 out of 10 of those. It's really, really impressed. She would win that game every time. So she just, I think that's the only one we've got from her. Oh, yeah, but you're going to like this one, too. This is another good one. So we have another good one. I tried to pick the ones that I thought that the chat would like the best. This one's good. All right, so this one, basically, we're going to let this one go on for like a minute and 40 seconds. I know it's a lot. Once you see it get going, you'll understand why. But I think the message from this city councilor, now they're not asking questions at this point. She's just going off. She gets 5 minutes, so she's got to make her speech. And I think this is now the message that Canada has fallen. Pretty sure that's what she's getting at here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just going to make comments. You have my motion. You know, I think we have to think about it as today as the world looks on really in disbelief at what is happening in our city.
Yeah.
It really is incomprehensible.
Incomprehensible.
That we're here on day 11.
11?
Federal
What?
government of Canada, has lost control of its capital.
See?
And the city of Ottawa has lost control of its residential neighborhoods. Both have fallen to a mob. And I can tell you this, that today is Monday, February 7th. I am more worried for my residents today, February 7th, than I was last Monday, January 31st. And
End
I
of-
can tell
end of
you
Canada.
that for anyone who thinks that this past weekend was more successful than last, has not considered what that means for residents. It was not more successful. Residents were living in terror.
Terror?
This past weekend. You know, it's one thing to have a convoy come into the city, and that opened up space for a lot of extreme elements. And last weekend was not an easy one to live through in this city.
Well, poor lady. All right, so I think that was the declaration that Canada has fallen. Our country, our capital, has been seized by these truckers, and she's not happy with what she heard. If you recall, earlier on in the show, we heard a lot from Sloly and we heard from Watson as well. And those two people were saying, you know, we are actually making progress. You know, some of these things are happening. We're sort of regaining territory and, driving them out. They're coming back in, driving them out again. We're talking about passing new laws and blah, blah, blah. But the police kind of came in this morning or earlier on in this meeting saying that, you know, they were seeing some progress. We were optimistic about where this was going. And this person is not happy with that. And here's what she says.
That's what we had in our city. So unless you were here, unless you came downtown and you saw it, you cannot in any way think that this weekend was a success. Numbers are not the issue. Numbers are not the issue. We opened up a chasm to show us in this country, in this city, that we have such an ugly side.
Ugly side.
And it's glaring. And it is as a result of ongoing inequities, it's polarization in politics. But I can tell you that there is still no urgency in this city for what is happening to residents. I went down to Bank Street.
Yeah, okay. All right, nobody cares about Bank Street. All right. So she goes on and she tells a story about how there were no police anywhere and, you know, she was very scared and all that goes on. So it's a lot of this big, long speeches and big tirades that don't really mean much of anything. But then we get to this guy. Now, this guy, I think, actually thinks that he can solve something, which I at least appreciate. So he's sort of, I think he's probably been making some spreadsheets or maybe a mind map. He's probably been mind mapping this thing up. I don't know. But he's been probably hard at work at this. And he's got some solutions that he wants to propose. Before we get into those solutions about cutting off the oil or about ticketing them or whatever, he's going to be telling us about his general frustrations, because that's really what these meetings are for. It's for these city council people to just go and kind of vent for a little while. I was on one of these boards. I was never on a city council, but I was on one of these boards that reported to a city council, and it was a giant waste of time, just like this is. But let's listen to him.
The question we feel is, you've heard a lot today of social image pictures and mainstream media reporting
social media
on the steps back, the gas that continues to make its way into the core. And we're worried that enforcement is going to be a real roller coaster with a lot of steps backwards, and we're hoping to see continuous momentum. I have just one other question for you on the operational side.
Sorry, sir, I wouldn't want to interrupt, but I do want to create some frame of expectations. This has been one of those journeys where it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, a step sideways. We've described the nature of this. It is not a single linear group of risks that we knock off in sequence and then we get closer and closer to a defined end state. It hasn't been that way from the beginning. I suspect it won't be that way until we get to the end. But we will continue to do our very best to make forward progress within the ability that our resources and the laws allow us to. And we will continue to engage civil society at all levels of government.
Okay, so you see how that was not an interesting clip, but that was kind of how most of this was, right? Is most of I'm nervous. We're doing everything we can to engage with everybody. But I wanted to get that started because he asked a couple other interesting questions, and I wanted to share these answers with you because they are interesting. So that Warlock or whatever was working on a plan, and he starts asking himself, fuel. I know, fuel. If we get fuel out of the truckers' hands, this is going to put an end to everything and it's going to solve the whole problem. And then they'll probably elect him to be the new Prime Minister of Canada or something. And so he's been working very hard on this. And so he says, all right, Mr. Chief, has anybody on your team thought about gasoline? Huh? And here's what the chief says.
Chief, can I just ask, if you are successful in cutting off the supply of fuel, how long until the trucks stop on Wellington?
1 minute.
I have to tell you, I've heard everything from several hours to they have the ability to maintain some level of power for up to 6 months. I don't have a D license. I've never driven a truck, and I don't know what other new technology.
Now listen to the timeline
under the hood these days in these vehicles. But we're doing our best to cut off the fuel, the funds, and any other supports that will enable this unlawful demonstration to continue. And we're trying to get help from all 3 levels of government to do so.
Listen. Wait, no, that's not it. Oh, did he say? Well, I don't know if it was in that clip or if I just missed it. I was listening, but he says somewhere that it could be operational, right? It could be a very short time. It could be all the way up, a couple days that these run out of trucks, run out of fuel, or it could be up to 6 months if they've got, backlogs of fuel or other ways to get these things fueled. And so he's sort of saying it's a nice idea, but not much we can do about that. We are working on it. And then he also asks this question. What about going after their insurance? I mean, can you just go and actually literally get them fired, cancel their insurance, take away their licenses, do something? And here's how that question goes.
Mr. Kanalakos or Mr. White, there has been a lot of discussion about leveraging the insurance that truckers have. Is that something that the city can play an important role in pursuing? And if so, do you need any direction from us to do so?
Mr. Mayor, from the legal standpoint, the insurance, and appreciating that we don't know, certainly legal services doesn't know as to whether these vehicles are insured in Ontario, other jurisdictions south of the border. We don't have access to that information. We don't know what the terms of their insurance would be. Normally speaking, that is something that would be within the jurisdiction of the province, either under the commercial vehicle operator regulations or in that regard. So bluntly, I don't believe that's something we can leverage effectively, at least from a legal services standpoint.
Mr. Mayor,
not the answer they wanted.
Part of the conversation Chief Sloly and I have been having with our federal and provincial counterparts. That is something.
Now, real quick on this guy. This guy is the city manager, so he's sort of like the operations guy, right? Who's sort of moving all these resources around a little bit. And so we hear from the city lawyer. That other guy was David White. They go to the lawyer. The lawyer says, can't really do that. These are private insurance contracts. And so the insurance provider is going to be, communicating with the trucker, and the government doesn't really have an ability to get in between in that. So we can't do it. But then it goes over to city manager, and city manager is going to tell us what his strategy is.
It's actively being looked at. It is within, it's not even federal jurisdiction because the trucks are provincially licensed and insured. And so the Ministry of Transportation of Ontario would be looking into that to see what regulations and tools do they have to have an impact on their insurance and on their licenses to operate commercial vehicles. So that is actively happening, and we'll report back as if and when we find out something.
So they want like directly to go after their insurance and their licenses. Right. We talked about it. They want to increase the stakes. They are making this go a little bit more hostile. Why is that? We have a couple other clips here. Now, I saved the best for last. Miss Meehan, the city councilor, Miss Meehan, is like, she's got to be number one. I think we're going to spend a full 5 minutes on her because it's just so good. But before we get there, I want to do a little bit of a detour, right? Because right now what we're talking about is the government bringing pressure to bear on the truckers. But there's also a mechanism whereby other citizens in Ottawa can bring pressure to bear on the truckers by filing injunctions, by filing a lawsuit against the trucker organization. And that's happening right now. And this city councilor actually asks about it. There's a lawyer in Canada, somebody I think by the name of Chapman. We're going to listen to him in a minute. But he is now filing suits and actually trying to serve the truckers with them. Okay, as we're going to see. So let's take a listen and to this city councilor. I believe this guy's name is Swayeda, and we talked about him last night when they did the emergency meeting. He was there. Actually, no, this is not him. This is a different guy, I believe. Yeah, this is a different city council member. Here he is.
On the injunction, did the city end up pursuing its own injunction? Because I know we were waiting for that. We had said we were at one point. We have now residents like Paul Champ and Emily Timan who did this on behalf of residents. Did the city pursue its own in this case?
Mr. Mayor, the city has not yet pursued its own injunction. That discussion is an ongoing one with Ottawa Police. Pursuing an injunction, certainly on behalf of government, is not something that doesn't come with potential risks, particularly if the injunction sought is overly broad. With the potential result that, for example, the court either doesn't grant the injunction, grants it partially, or that, for example, if the injunction is ultimately appealed and overturned, those kinds of risks are that the people that are the subject of that injunction can be emboldened by that.
Or win.
And that's a discussion I've also had with my colleagues at the federal level. So we have prepared materials in the event that obtaining an injunction or obtaining some kind of injunctive relief is something that the police believe would serve to assist their operational plans and assist them in dealing with the protest. But to date, we have not filed that.
Yeah, and there's a big reason why, right? He says, well, it might embolden them. Like they may get a victory on small sum level and say, hey, this is great. We can stay a lot longer. But the bigger problem here is it sets really bad precedent. Okay, what happens if they bring this into court and a judge says, the trucks, they're fine, right? That's public property. It's fine. Freedom of whatever. Yeah, here, freedom of speech. Yeah, I still care about that. And so you guys can't do what you want to do. We actually do have due process. We are still moored in liberty to some degree. And so what happens if the government brings it and they lose? They get thrown out of court. No, we freedom of assembly, freedom of protest, all of those things we still value. Thanks, but no thanks, go away. And now the truckers can do it all day. And they actually sort of lose tools because the courts are on their side. And look, it's a real risk. Probably unlikely that would happen, but certainly a risk, which is why they haven't filed it. Now, it's a little bit different if it's a private citizen filing it, because if they lose, the consequences are to them, but not to the government. And so that is happening now in Canada. We have this guy. This guy is Paul Champ. Okay, he's on Twitter at Paul Champ Law. And he is now working against the truckers, says, "Dear Freedom Convoy truckers," addressing them directly, "my client, Miss Lee, is making an offer to settle the proposed class action against those that have been blaring their horns in downtown Ottawa." He's now extending a settlement offer. So if there happen to be any truckers out there, this is his extension of an offer, all right? Here's what he says. He says, depart in peace, and ye shall be released. See video, more details to come with the release. Who does he think he is? Depart in peace and ye shall be released. It's like the glove don't fit, you must acquit. It's not that good. All right. Here is who this guy is. He's an Ottawa lawyer. He's got a national practice, works on employment, labor, and human rights. And he's got pronouns in the he and him variety. And he's got a message for all the truckers out there. Here's what he says.
Hi, my name is Paul Champ. I'm the lawyer representing Zexi Lee, the young woman who lives in downtown Ottawa and who is suing the Freedom Convoy 22 organizers and those truckers who've been blaring their horns night and day since Friday, January the 28th. You don't know how much harm you've been causing the individuals in downtown Ottawa.
Really?
I understand why the truckers are mad about mask mandates, vaccination mandates. In fact, I represent unvaccinated workers against employers who've fired them for not getting vaccinated. I get it.
Do you?
But what you're doing to the people in downtown Ottawa has just become too much. The people with newborns, people with disabilities, the elderly, they can't sleep. The horns are causing them serious harm, and you are on the hook for significant financial damages in this class action.
Significant.
But Ms. Lee is willing to make an offer. On behalf of herself and all of the class members in downtown Ottawa, she is offering to release you and not pursue you for any financial damages, provided you leave Ottawa by Monday morning at 10 a.m. That's Monday, February the 7th at 10 a.m.
Oh.
We will make a release available to you very shortly, which if you sign and put your name and your vehicle license plate on there, you will then be released once Ms. Lee can apply to court to have the settlement confirmed. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Well, that deadline has come and passed, and I think they're still there. So that didn't work out too well, but, you know, that's his demand. Oh, all right. So now, yeah, if you haven't left, truckers, you're on the hook. Mr. Champ is coming after you. Is that his real name? Is he really named Champ? Oh gosh, Paul Champ. I wonder if he changed that. I wonder who changes their last name. Ridiculous. Says Joel Harden is somebody else who says this is leadership. We've got McKinney, who is one of the other. I think she was the. Well, I don't even know. Anyways, is talking to a convoy protester, urging them to leave by 10 a.m. tomorrow. If they do and they sign a legal waiver, they won't get hit with this, a $9.8 million lawsuit for downtown residents. Okay, this is from Ottawa News. So he's actually sending people around and saying, if you sign this legal waiver and leave, I'm not going to sue you. Otherwise, we're going to sue you. That's what's happening. Paul Champ. All right. And so we'll see if that goes anywhere. Now, I think that this was the same guy that was in conversation during those settlement agreements where they actually came to a conclusion that was appropriate. And we talked about this with Bev Johnson yesterday, where they're actually negotiating. Yes, we won't honk from this time to this time. We'll be reasonable, but we're also going to be making our demands, right? And standing firm in what we're here to do. So he's going to try to sue him. We'll see where that goes. Now, we are going to go back to the city council because we have another woman. This woman is on, well, this woman's just great too. And so here is, do I want to intro this at all? No, I don't think so. We'll just listen to this one. Here is, I forget her name.
They really want to participate in helping to get rid of this convoy, this blockade. So I just wanted to pass that on because it's a very strong feeling overall.
All right.
As the liaison on women and gender equity,
there it is.
I can't help but notice the effect on women and people whose genders make them more vulnerable in a volatile situation. I know that women in Cornerstone homeless shelter who've been hospitalized because of the stress of the constant noise, and of the inability to sleep, afraid to go outside, and people accosting them on the street, telling them to take off their masks. And the situation with the Shepherds of Good Hope had protesters trying to take food from the homeless at their shelter. I also know the gender diverse people who have been aggressively screamed at on the street simply because they have a pride flag on their backpacks. They have to choose between going to work in fear or staying hostages in their home. This is nothing like a normal demonstration. This is a blockade.
It's a blockade. All right. And so you could see, right, she's on the Gender Equity Council. She's the liaison to that council. And so she knows how adversely the women have been impacted because the women have different ears than the men do, I guess. And the honking has put a couple of them in the hospital. And this is very different. But what happened, of course, is that, she goes back to that same soup kitchen story, which we talked about on this channel. And it's like, did the soup kitchen call the police? Did they file a report? Did the police show up and make any arrests? This was at the beginning. This was before they were under siege, allegedly. And so was anything taking place back then that would have solidified and buttressed their claim? Or was all of that just a bunch of anecdote? Well, I don't know. But my friends, we're finally there. This is the best for last, and we're going to spend some time on this one. This woman, her name is Carol Ann Meheen, and she's been a counselor for some time now. She represents the Gloucestershire South Ward 22. And this woman, as you can see, is very stressed about this, right? The emotions are just on her face, just torn apart over these last 8, 9, 10, 11 days. And it's just a mess. Okay, so as I mentioned, right, you sort of frame yourself. You say, okay, these are leaders of our cities, of our country. These are people who are making very important decisions for us. And so if you put yourself in their shoes, right, you've handled emergencies. You've been in emergency situations where there's been a lot of pressure on you. And how do you comport yourself? How do you handle yourself? Do you run around freaking out, jumping out the window, or do you kind of settle down and relax? Well, I think people presume that the people that we elect to sort of run things are going to be in that latter category. Like, they're competent, they can manage their emotions, they can think through complex problems. But in reality, many of them are not, as we can see with this woman. This woman is Carol Ann Meheen. This is not from today, okay? This is from yesterday. But I want to preface this because this actually goes into, she's going to lay the framework for why these statements today are so nuts. So this is Carol Ann. She got about 3 minutes, I think, last night. This is 2 minutes where she ends literally begging the police for action. And then we're going to go to her motion and to what she wants to say today. So this is last night and today. Let's listen in to Carol Ann Meheen, Ottawa City Council member, begging law enforcement.
I think if we could see some concrete things happening, maybe people wouldn't be so frustrated. We see Quebec City taking action. We see Toronto taking action. I mean, obviously, with hindsight, look at what's going on here. But at the same time, you need officers. We're getting more officers, but we need to be told if there's a concrete plan in place that we can start arresting people. How do we know that things are going to blow up if we haven't done anything except monitor and keep the peace? This can't continue. And this is day 8. Can I just say that knowing that we haven't been in touch with the NCC to decide about policing Confederation Park is mind-boggling to me. Have we not put all the levels of government and the decision makers in a room to determine, because this is an unprecedented situation, that we have to take unprecedented decisions and move? Because we're giving it the signal to all these people who are coming into town that it's a free-for-all. They can take tires off trucks. They can put up buildings. They can bring in fuel. They can take over our stadium. We've given them the signal that it's a come and party in our town. And I'm expressing frustration, not just as a board member and a city councillor, but as a resident of the city, to see our colleagues and our fellow residents downtown being so hard put upon. I believe it when I hear the city councillors downtown say there's no police presence in the neighborhoods and people have been left on their own. We want to know what the plan is. We want to know concretely what is going to happen. What? Are we going to start making arrests? Or do we just wait for more intelligence? I'm assuming other cities are getting intelligence, but they're still taking concrete action. So please, I apologize if I'm off base here as a board member.
Here.
But we're not getting answers. We're not getting the answers that we require here. Please, I'm begging you, give us some answers. What's going to be done here?
Oh my gosh, please, I'm begging you, please help me. We can't help this. And look, folks, you can just look at her face and my goodness, she is just angry as can be. And she just wants answers, man. And so that took place last night. And you can see, right? I mean, like level 11 out of 10, my goodness. And it just continues on today. Okay. So that's Meehan. And she gets more time today. And so we're going to go into it. Let's listen in, right? That's yesterday. She's saying, arrest them already. Take action. We need some concrete action and we need a plan. She starts that again today. Here is how that sounds. Now, before she gets into her emotion, she's going to sort of, pass a motion where she's going to call everybody else racist also. But she's also going to be telling us that it's time to stop being nice about this. Here's what she says.
Meehan, if you'd like to introduce your motion, please.
I would be happy to do that, Your Honor, Your Honor, Your Worship. While I'm looking for it, I just have to pull it up here. I have it. Can I just say something briefly before I introduce it?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. You got your 5 minutes.
Just actually one question has to do with the injunction, the noise injunction. You see all over Twitter that people are being urged not to respect the injunction and to continue tooting, like blowing horns again tonight. There's nothing to suggest that they will adhere to it, except that, when we get an injunction, I think it's extremely important that we enforce that injunction as stiffly and as toughly as we possibly can.
Stiffly and toughly.
Otherwise, it's useless to even go that route. So I would hope that the police tonight are prepared to clamp down really hard on anyone who, violates that injunction. Also.
All right. Hopefully the police are just going to go out there and just start arresting people. We've got an injunction. If there's an injunction and you're not doing anything about it, well, then what good is the injunction? And so I'm pretty sure this woman would just start going, just start executing people. Just take them out. Yeah. Take them out. All of them? All of them. She's that lady in the movies, And the soldiers are like, really? Fire and take them all out. She's that type of person. If you gave her the authority to do it, I guarantee you she would. If you said, Madam Meehan, would you like to send the military in? Just push this button. She'd be like, smash her away, right? They'd be in there just mopping everybody up. So now she's going to say, let's escalate this a little bit further. And she uses some very interesting language here.
Respectfully suggest that bylaw is being way too pussyfooted around the trucks that are downtown. Investigating who owns the trucks. You're just wasting time. Councillor Fleury suggested that we ticket anyway. I think we go ahead, we ticket anyway. You send those tickets one a day for a maximum amount to the owner of that transport truck. Don't waste time. Let's not be as nice as you want, as we obviously have been. We've got to do what's necessary, and that's just ticket away. Send it by mail. You don't have any confrontation with the truckers who are causing all the trouble. And not only that, get the license plates of all those trucks that are running through the neighborhoods and do the same damn thing. Okay.
Wow.
Here's my motion.
That's that woman. She's in charge, right? She's on the city council, ranting and raving like a psycho person. Arrest everybody, round them up, send tickets to the truck owners every day, maximum amount, and stop pussyfooting around it. Ottawa. Yikes. So that's Miss Meehan. Now she's going to keep going. Let's go on. Here's where she's saying, look, the point is you should just put people in military gear. Just arm them up in SWAT gear, send them out there and start wiping out the truckers. Essentially is where she's going.
And this is seconded by Councillor McKenney, by the way. Whereas Ottawa is the capital city of Canada and as such should have the necessary legislative powers and funding to ensure the peace and security of the city of Ottawa. And whereas in 1988, the Federal Emergencies Act was passed into law, whereas the Emergencies Act sets out procedures by which emergencies and public order threats are present, and whereas the governor and council, that could be a member of the provincial legislature, someone with the city, would be empowered to make orders and regulations concerning the threat following the provisions of the Act. Therefore, be it resolved that the City of Ottawa enter into discussions with the Federal Minister of Public Safety to determine whether the Emergencies Act can be invoked at this time.
So she just read that, right? That's her motion. And she's going to explain what she wants that to do. Basically, she's saying we need to go inquire whether we have any special emergency powers that we can use to go in and just start cleaning all this up. Here's how that continues.
A piece of legislation was passed specifically for an event like this. So I think that we have to explore if this would give us the tools and it would get the federal government to come on board. I'd also like to ask if we have given the protesters a deadline, a firm deadline, that they must be leaving the city by noon Tuesday or 6 o'clock on Wednesday, or something's going to happen. We could fill the Armory building next to City Hall with geared up riot police, just have them sit there. They don't have to do anything. It's maybe the suggestion of a threat, which is what Premier Legault has been doing, that actually gets something working, it gets something going. Give them a deadline, see who leaves, and the people who don't leave, do something.
Shoot them.
I'm clearly frustrated along with everybody, but I think the time for being nice has passed.
Yeah, she's a tyrannical lunatic, right? The time has come to do something about it. Round them up if they're still here. She almost said, take them out. Didn't she? She almost said that right there. I'm pretty sure that's what she was thinking. Okay, let's see what you have to say about this from our friends over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. That was the hearing. Now, it was still going on when I started the show, so if there's anything else that's juicy left from it, well, we'll have to clip that and talk about it. But it mostly was a lot of the same sort of back and forth. A lot of crazy people on the city council. And, well, we'll see where they go from here. They seem like they just want to continue to escalate everything. Not cooperating. They are mischaracterizing everything. They have been mislabeling everything that has been going on, calling it racist and terroristic and insurrectionary and all this nonsense. And so we'll continue to cover it. Now, we got to take a look at what you have to say over from our friends at watchingthewatchers.locals.com as I do a refresh on this. And we're waiting for this puppy to load up. No, that's not the one that I wanted. We are here. This is the one. All right. And so while this is loading up, let's see what we've got from YouTube. A couple super chats came in. Want to make sure that we got them all. We had Jay says, do you think the wider public sees the blatant hypocrisy and the double standards coming out? So I don't know what we would be talking about in terms of, double standards or hypocrisy. I mean, I think that if you're talking about, like, for example, like one obvious hypocrisy I can see out of the Canadian trucker situation is, they said it's okay for you to be locked in your home for 15 days, 14 days, but it's not okay for them to be in their homes, right? And so, like, that's a double standard, right? One that I think is pretty interesting, but, not really widely relevant, but there's many that we could explore all day long. Jeremy Treguna says, take a shot every time you hear siege, criminal, occupation, hateful, racism, homophobic, transphobic, or torture. And you'd be dead. I mean, if you followed that advice at the start of the show, Jeremy, your blood alcohol content would be like a 0.6. You'd be like dead. So hopefully that didn't happen because that's, I think, all they talked about. The game, it was so much of that really the reverse would be really nice also. Sort of like if they said a normal word, you drink. Kareem says, I went to downtown to support the Ottawa for the third time today. This time I ran into another YouTuber you know very well. Any idea who that is? Nick Ricada. Was he there? I don't know who that could be. Liquid City is here, says the police chief acts like this is the biggest terror attack and he personally is bringing it down. Great career move. Protect people from the honking. Well, it's putting people in the hospital, according to the lady on the Gender Equity Council. Ray Kay says, sorry, bub, the people will win. You have no idea how organized they are. Their own security force in crime is down 90%. That's nice, because they're better at the policing than the actual police are. We've got Dragon Slayer says, Yeshua, help us. I'ma forgive him now, because if I don't, talking about somebody testifying, I'm sure. Tony Gufai says, thanks for making us up to speed on what's actually happening, what's going on. Well, thank you, Tony. I'm glad that you're joining us here, and I appreciate your support with that super chat. Tara Rayner says, the investigative body to file a complaint against the chief is the board that has 2 council members that are pushing further charter infringements. Okay, I see what you're saying. So file a complaint against the city of Ottawa, the police chief, I think is where you're going with that. Interesting, Tara. Teddy Bear with a nice super chat. No question. Thank you, Teddy Bear. I appreciate you on that one. Tara also says, the convoy organizers have 100 affidavits from downtown residents. The media, however, have enabled a false narrative to abuse their powers. I wonder what those affidavits are for, sort of in support of them, or what are those affidavits about? Dragon Slayer says at Viva Fry today, who's right next door on YouTube and on Locals, says he interviewed a trans today. Well, that's good. Hopefully it was a good interview. We have Tara Rayner says, just cause I answered. Thank you for the compliment. I think are you guys chatting in the super chats? It's expensive to do that, you know. Classy 1 says Two-Spirit is a First Nation religious philosophy in Canada. I don't mean to be offensive. I've just never heard of that. I didn't recognize what that was. Jeremy Treguna says, coming out of the USA, because of course, little compliant Canadians would never value their freedom like our American cousins do. Yeah. That's so condescending, Jeremy. I mean, of them towards Canadians, right? Our people don't care about liberty. This is not them, obviously. You know, all of those Canadian flags that are being carried around, Americans, you know, because we love Canada so much. We do. We love Canada. Not what your government's doing. It's insane. But, you know, we look, I think you're exactly right about that, Jeremy. And it's really offensive to say that their own people wouldn't care about these things, but the Americans would. Kareem is here, says, I'm not sure how Diane Deans got so corrupted. She was one of the best city officials here back in 2015. She opposed Mayor Jim Watson back then. Well, people just sort of fall, I think, right? They get a part of that club and then they just fall. Not applicable says he can't hear to find a boyfriend over the honking. I'm not sure who that was. Oh, okay. Ronnie Cole says, how can truckers leave if they have no gas? Oh, Ronnie Cole just solved this whole thing. Government's in a big catch-22, aren't they? Shoot. We want them to leave, but we just took all their gas, so they can't leave. But if we give them their gas back, they're going to turn their cars back on and they're going to keep honking. And then we're going to have to take away their fuel. And if we do that, maybe they'll leave. It's a good idea, Jim. Let's take their fuel away. All right. And so they do it again. All right. So maybe that's how this whole thing wraps up. Wolfgang says, if you voted for Biden or Trudeau, you are getting exactly what you wanted. January 6th, Freedom Convoy. Stop stepping on us. Honk unbreaded from Wolfgang. Good to see you, Wolfgang. Henry Dixon says, the honking will continue until freedom improves. The honking will continue until freedom improves, which is my favorite thing to come out of this whole thing. I absolutely love that, right? There was that guy doing the meltdown in the blue jacket, and the guy just said, listen, man, look, the honking's going to continue until freedom improves. And it's true. It's going to happen. Wolfgang says, let's stop kitty cat footing around. Send them in. We have Nerf Magnet says, where was his energy during the BLM riots? You know, the actual riots. Yeah, especially in Canada. Well, Justin Trudeau was very supportive of those riots. He didn't have much to say when BLM and those protests pulled down the statute out there, the John A. Macdonald statute, who was like George Washington, right, in Canada, to the United States. They just pulled it down. The head actually popped off the body, and there was a gentleman enjoying himself on the head of the statute. Justin Trudeau says, I support that. You know, that's all very peaceful. Here, though, there's honking. And these are racist, obviously. So that's how that one goes. We've got another one from Vicidius says, the sooner the government complies, the sooner the honking will stop. It's very easy. Roll back the mandates, just like every other country is sort of considering at this moment, I think. Kareem says, I ran into Viva in Ottawa today. Very nice man. Kareem, I knew it was Viva. Yeah, I knew it was Viva. I know it's not Nick Rekieta. Nick Rekieta doesn't live in Canada. He lives in Minnesota, small law firm in central Minnesota. But thank you for clarifying. I didn't mean to say like I didn't get it right. Anyways, Wolfgang says, I think we should hold Canada flag marches in the USA. It's a very beautiful flag. I love it. Tara says, yes, they're in support of them. Thank you, Tara. And I think, my friends, that is what we've got over from YouTube. Thanks for sending all those in. Let's make sure that our comments here are in proper working order, because I click them out of order oftentimes on locals. And here's what we've got. Robute's first up says, of course, the Gestapo is going to be sent to crush peaceful protest and starve them out because the powers that be are fascist. They do not like people challenged, and they want the truckers to be slaves. Shelley says, happy Monday. I'm so disappointed that no one with the police has said to the council or parliament, hey, let's think about this. They're just expressing their right to peacefully assemble in free speech. If you want them to leave, meet with them. And so, Shelley, there was one person who sort of talked about that. That was yesterday. Her name was Bev Johnson, and I played that in the video covering that emergency meeting. She talked about this specifically. She said, you know, we're in a situation where I heard that there was this court proceeding where there was an injunction, and they were able to talk this through and negotiate a resolution. Have we tried that? And they said, well, we've got liaisons and they're interfacing and all this stuff. But the other person said, but these just are not reasonable people. So how do you negotiate with people that are not reasonable? I mean, that's their answer on this. It's not facetious talk, right? They think that these people are terrorists now. They are using it like they think that their capital is still under January 6th. Okay? Like, imagine that the QAnon shaman is still in the Capitol building with the gavel. I think that's what these city council people think is happening in Canada right now. I think. Like, they actually got, in the United States, in our insurrection, they never actually got the gavel. And so that's why it kind of stopped, and they went back in a couple hours later and just went back to business. But this one kind of feels like they kind of have the gavel, you know, or the podium. Scary. Former LEO says, I wonder what would happen if the truckers called a general strike. They had one back in San Francisco in 1934, in which police and strikebreakers injured more than 70 and murdered 2. The truckers have the power to shut down Canada. It's just that they don't know it. I think they do know it. It says, am I turning into an anarchist? You're getting close, but I think they do know it. They're not going there, but they do know that. Sasha Sisha is here, says, hello, Rob. Hope you're doing well. The language used by the Canadian government is scary, should be paid attention to. Same goes for our current government. They call the people that they do not support their ideology terrorists, but the ones causing the damage are called peaceful protesters. The only violence I've seen is some vaxxed and masked individuals running over a protester. Also, if you've not watched the show called Utopia on Prime, highly recommend it. It's amazing. And regarding the government pushing the pandemic and the vaccine, it's made back in 2013. Interesting. Vientika says, Rob, just got back from a rally at New Jersey State Capitol. There was a lawyer there that spoke about a case in the 7th Circuit. I think it's Hughes versus Trustees, something, where the judge improperly cited other lawyers have been using that decision as precedent. I told her about Joe Neerman, since he's in New Jersey. Afterwards, I thought to myself, well, dang, I should have gotten her business card. You could interview her or something. I hate it when you forget about these things that are so common in your life. At least it sounded interesting talking to Joe. Her name is Dana something or other. Well, thank you for that update there, Vientikis. I appreciate that. Lord Nelson says, this council locked down the community and endangered business for 2 years. Now they hate the truckers and they lie about what they have done. Yeah, from Lord Nelson. Seawolf says, these acts the mayor is referring to are probably being conducted by provocateurs. It wouldn't surprise me if the mayor may even be aware of it. They're trying to manufacture their own January 6th-like event, apparently. I think they are. They're actually creating it, right? They're defining it that way because it gives them a bunch of additional power. Rob, have you ever watched The Wheel of Fortune? Can you solve this puzzle? F-LSE, F-L-G. By a vowel A. I'd like to solve this puzzle. False flag. You're a millionaire. Hey, thanks. I'm amazing. Thank you, Monster One, for that. Robute says, wouldn't it be tragic if people coordinated to scout for police and, communicated their signal location and give people supplies? Of course, they seized fuel under the guise of safety and giving supplies to their enemies. That's from Robute. I'm sure they are coordinating to do what they need to do. Vientikis says all these people are trucker phobes. The city council is. Yeah, I said that they have TDS. TDS, we're familiar with this. Trucker derangement syndrome. Now, I don't know if anybody else came up with that, but I'm sure they have. Robute says, Ezra Levant from Rebel News is crowdfunding legal fees. He might make a website for crowdfunding to give this out. So they are, right? It's truckerlawyer.ca, I think. Truckerlawyer.ca forwards over to them, and they're gathering money for that. Let's see here. That was from last. Where am I at? Okay, here we got this one. Grouchy Old Cat Lady says, but Rob, it was just a Winter of Love festival, similar to CHOP without the shootings and the crimes. Yeah, this is a little bit, I'd say, more peaceful than a lot of what we saw. I'm Not Gas says, 1,200 green untrained police officers pressed into service. Sounds like a great idea. They're already setting the stage for another situation like George Floyd. Ed is here. Says, Rob, the police chief lies so much that his Pinocchio nose requires an 18-wheeler to haul it around. Not good for him in this situation. Half the officers quit. That's why he needs people. Yeah, and they are at max capacity, he said. Miss Lucky and Sergeant Bob here, former Canadian, says, Sergeant Bob says, strain and stress for Ottawa police. Ha. And Sergeant Bob, if you couldn't tell, is a former sergeant from Portland. He says they should have gone to Portland and worked nonstop for many days and nights while having dangerous objects hurled at them, including Molotov cocktails. Ottawa should stop crying, go truckers, more government overreach, Canada totalitarianism at its best. And if you didn't know this, Sergeant Bob and Miss Lucky, they're in Arizona now, right here. Arizona got a lot more warmer when they arrived, and it's good to have them here. They left because of some of that stuff. Everyone's grandma says, please don't turn it up. A Canadian Nancy Pelosi sounds just like her as well. Don't you see through these brazen tactics? Please turn her off. And I know there was a lot of difficult people to listen to today. Let's see what else we've got. He says, hey, Rob, hey, quick question from C. Reed. Says, hey, quick question. Why have they not called this a super spreader event yet? That's a good question. You would think if the COVID was a problem with the unvaxxed and large gathering, the rate of it would be 10 times more than any other city. The more I watch this train wreck, the more it seems like the Bolsheviks' 1917 takeover, just now the working class are being deemed the alt-right. Are the Republicans the new Kulaks, or did it not seem to work out well for them for the last time? Yeah, C. Reed, it is kind of a scary thing to listen to the language that they're using. I mean, it is very draconian indeed. We've got Speech Unleashed says, let's see what the city council does if the truckers decide to unite and stop all their truck deliveries to Ottawa. Right? That's a big, big problem for them if they decide to do that. Sasha Sisha is here, says, Rob, you know whose fault this is, right? Trump, Russia, racism, and conservative white people. Yeah, I know. I know. I'm to blame for most things in this world. Shelley says they are trying to hurt people so badly that no one dares stand up to them, just like the left is doing with the J6 prisoners and the big lie. How dare us, lowly citizens, question our governments and demand they uphold our rights? Yep, we've got Miss Lucky says, where is Ray Epps? No doubt he was instigated in this. Where is Trudeau? In Delaware with Mr. Sleepy. Councillor McKinney typifies the socialist attitude toward anyone that is not sheeple. That's from Miss Lucky. We have a couple others from Miss Lucky. Sergeant Bob says, strain and stress. Okay, got that one. Wait, did I get some of these? Terry's here. So some of these are out of order. I don't know why. Miss Lucky says, my pal in Tucson refers to the city council. We've got Terry, Matt's mom is here, says, the Ottawa council members have never had a Halloween party hosted by my son. Catholic school teenagers took over my home. My husband and I never thought we'd get it back. Oh, this is terrible. I also have been a Catholic teenager who's taken over my mother's home. I think I owe her an apology on that one. But back to this Catholic mom says damages, spills, trash, etc. The truckers can come hang out anytime. They don't break things. Empty your pantry and leave trash everywhere like her Catholic sons named Matt does. Matt? God. I did it too, Matt. It's all right. And one of my best friends growing up was named Matt. We could have been friends. We have another one, Angel Blair, talking about, okay, here's this one from Three Girlies says, Two-Spirit was coined in 1990. In my view, it is a perversion of Native American culture. Basically, it is someone who was born as one sex but dresses and acts the opposite, mainly believing that their inner spirit. All right, so this is dictionary.com, has a definition for us. Two-Spirit, according to the dictionary.com. Third gender found in some Native American cultures often involved birth-assigned men or women taking on the identities and roles of an opposite sex. Sacred and historical identity. Two-Spirit can include, but is by no means limited to, LGBTQ identities. Okay. Well, you learn something new on this show, right? And oftentimes we learn in public. I had never seen that. Now I'm educated about it. Not sure what I'm going to do with that knowledge, but all right. Monster One says, why do people still buy anything these people say? It's the same tactics from the left in every country, it seems. Call them racist. The words racist and white supremacist have all lost meaning at this point. Yeah, and I think that largely that's true. I mean, I think there's incidents where you can say, yeah, that person is a racist person. But it's been used so just, I mean, it's like, okay, I'm a racist. I know, I'm a Nazi. I got it, right? They threw out this entire community off Discord for white supremacy Nazi stuff. What are you talking about? Okay, so that's just, how it is. And if everybody is a Nazi white supremacist, then is anybody a Nazi white supremacist, really? Miss Lucky says, export Liz Cheney to Ottawa. She's going to probably lose her next election, so maybe she'll run for city council up there. Sasha Sisha says, I do not know if the Canadian government thought about this. I understand it takes a mega brain to come up with a solution to the situation. Probably Trudeau did think about it, but I believe the easiest solution to all this is to just, stop the mandates. Yeah, it might work. Sergeant Bob says, I will say that not using the air horns may be a good idea. Sound does carry up, and I would think it would get pretty nasty. No point antagonizing the populace. Does not add to the goal. Yeah, I think that reasonable people can come to an agreement on that. I agree with that. Three Girlies says, people can demand all they want, but that doesn't mean that they are right. And why would anyone be willing to sign and put down their information for them to be tracked? If we're talking about the lawsuit there, yeah, come up and sign this document. Get out of my face, person. I'm not signing that. Monster One says, Robert Gouveia, who changes their last name. Feds do. I know. Yeah, well, I get maybe. Sometimes. Sasha Sisha says, sounds like the gender equity lady answered her own concerns about this convoy. In her own words, the women have to choose between going to work or holding themselves hostages in their own homes. Isn't that what the Canadian government is trying to do with these mandates? But those are the good penalties, right? Those are good because they're for the citizens' own good. They're so dumb that these sophisticated government bureaucrats are going to educate them. Miss Lucky says, Sergeant Bob, simple answer. Trudeau, get rid of your stupid rules. Truckers did just fine without it for almost 2 years, but he's a socialist dictator. And he's gone missing. And yeah, he doesn't want to be anywhere near this. Come back after, I guess, other people clean up his mess for him. Speech Unleashed says, that councilwoman called that police officer representative your warship. Yeah, I noticed that. And, some of those, like there's like worshipful, and they say some of these very sort of old, archaic, rules of order for conducting meetings. And so there was some of that I didn't pick up on. They were, I think calling them warships or worshipfuls. Former LEO says, it's a good thing the U.S. government chose a different plan during the civil rights demonstrations in 1950s, 60s, and 70s. If I was a Canadian, I would be embarrassed. Yeah, well, I think that I don't want to speak for most Canadians or even attempt to do that, but I think that the lines are splitting where the lines split. And I've been saying this for 2 years now, right? But there's this resorting taking place. People are re-identifying on what side of the aisle they want to be on. And a lot of this isn't about the old lines that we used to comport with, like small government, low taxes, sacred family, right? Or whatever the Republicans pretended to care about for my entire life. Now it's becoming about just like out and out freedom. Like people are not, killing themselves so much over these issues that don't directly pertain to them. But in Canada, if you've got a mandate and you can't get into the country because you're not complying with their new rules, that's a big problem that affects you in a big, meaningful way. And so, now we're starting to see these lines materialize and they're sort of crossing old boundaries. Like I just saw a headline that more young Democrats are watching Tucker Carlson than the other shows. Why? Because they're sick of it too, just like the rest of everybody else. Everybody wants freedom, I think, at a humanitarian, instinctual level. And that's why when we look around the world and we see this creeping dictatorship, these authoritarians like this Meehan woman and Diane Deans and others, right? They may gobble up power when people are afraid and they'll just say, here, take this over from me, right? I'm so scared. You saw Meehan begging, please tell us what to do, right? And they just need help. And they're just going to gobble up the power that makes them feel safe. That's what that is. They feel very unsafe. And so if you're in their way of impeding their safety, it's your own problem. They don't care about your liberty at all. And so, you know, I think that as the tentacles continue to tighten, I think you're going to see more people identify on the sort of the freedom wing of the spectrum. Kels Bells is here, says, Rob, have you seen Moneyball? You did a little piece of a scene and had me. No, I have not seen Moneyball, actually. I've not seen it. Did I do something from it? No, I've not seen it. I don't even know what that is. Was Moneyball one of the South Park ones? Like, weren't the creators of the South Park guys, didn't they make a movie like in the 90s? Is that one? I don't think I've seen it. I don't think so. Miss Lucky says, Sergeant Bob, Clown Council should just say, Justin T, get your candy down here. You caused the problem. But no. And Justin wouldn't go anyway, Sergeant Bob. Thunder 7 says, Rob, Trudeau and the city councilors lying about the peaceful protesters. They're accusing them of stealing food and fuel and being violent. It just makes people around the world support them even more. There are too many independents like Viva and others who are putting out videos showing what's really going on, right? And it's like, it is so valuable. That is so valuable. It's like, and I watch Viva Man, and he's out there, and it is freezing cold, and his nose is red as can be, and there's fog coming out of his mouth. And I'm just like, man, I'm so grateful for him and everybody else who's just filming everything, right? I happen to be closer with Viva, but I know there are many other people out there doing the same thing. And I don't think that these types of movements would be possible but for that. Because we would only be hearing what the CBC tells us or what these city councilors tell us. There would be no truth. And they would just put their headlines out and everybody would go, wow, the Capitol's under attack. Yes, send the military in. I mean, it sounds like it's madness. But when you go on Viva's stream and it's people singing songs, dancing around in the streets, it's just a beautiful thing. All right. And I think we're going to do a refresh over here on locals. And we have a couple others that came in on YouTube. Thank you, everybody, for those. Oh, Ray Epps is here. Says, Philip Blake says, these are diesel trucks. If they don't keep running without engine heaters, they won't start back up. Oh, so that's interesting, too. Yeah, so I didn't know that. If they don't keep running without engine heaters, they won't start back up, so the engines will freeze. It'll get too cold. Ray Epps is here. Ray Epps says, hey, Rob, tell Miss Lucky I'm here. I'm doing the important work of gathering information for Nadler. Oh, yeah, Nadler and his 42.5-pound diaper. Says, FYI, I just had a meeting. The diaper is at 62 pounds now? What? Oh, I figured this was going to happen. Look, folks, after the holidays, you've got Thanksgiving, you've got Christmas, you've got New Year's. Jerry Nadler had some time off. He's just shoving food down his gullet, hand over fist, man. He can't stop. And he's been waddling around. Last year in 2021, Jerry Nadler was only about 42.5 pounds. He's at 62 pounds now. And nobody's going to change him. We get a whole new administration and still nobody's going to change him. The Democrats are in charge. They've been in charge for a year now and several months. And Jerry Nadler is still waddling around Washington, stinking up the whole place. Can somebody change him, please, for crying out loud? My goodness. All right, Wolfgang Deo is here. Says, Rob is learning to grift like Nick. Well, look, that's a really nice compliment, Wolfgang Deo. I'll have to tell him you said that. That's a really nice thing. Yeah, well, one can only hope to reach that status. We have another one from Greg Marquez. Says, interestingly, the trans person that Viva interviewed said that it was the counter-protesters that harassed them. Well, that's weird. I wonder if that's going to be on CBC anytime soon. Thanks for that, Greg. So I didn't get to watch a lot of Viva today because I think he was out there today, right? But I didn't get to watch a lot of him today. I had a full morning. Anne Marie Milne with a nice donation. Thank you, Anne Marie. I really appreciate that one. Eddie Oliver's in the house, says, Rob, these people are honking. Will they steal a podium next? They must be stopped before someone puts their feet on a politician's desk, which is true. Look, if that happens, we might as well just call Canada a defeated country. That's it. Just button it up. You're done. All right. Look, America has not recovered from the great podium attempt. And we've been dealing with this look at this. I forgot to close my blinds today. I forgot to link us up to Rumble, and I forgot to close my blinds. So I'm going to be staring at the sun right there, right in my face. Don't you like that? Just unbelievable today. All right. And so let's see. That was from Eddie Oliver. Yeah. If somebody puts their feet on Trudeau's desk, we might as well just nuke the entire city. Just nuke them. Nuke them. All right, we've got Kareem says, sorry, Rob. I should have known about Ricada more. I'm just teasing you, Kareem. Thank you so much, Kareem. I really appreciate you. I'm only teasing. I appreciate what you're doing out there. And Godspeed to you too, my friend. I know you're out there on, boots on the ground out there in Ottawa. And, we're grateful and we want you to stay safe and stay warm. Wolfgang says, these truckers do not want to strike and harm citizens. They do not want to strike because that would harm citizens. Says, as such, they will force the government to stop their tyranny or take out the truckers for good. So, yeah, the truckers right there, their end game here is not to sort of impact the city of Ottawa or to impede their fellow men and women or spirits or whatever, but also to stop the mandates, right? They want to be effective, not just problematic, which is the right way to do it. We have Vaso says, U.S. trucking companies and U.S. real estate are reaching out to the Freedom Convoy truckers to come and work in the U.S. Yeah, look, I hope that's true. I don't know if that's true or not. I hope that is. And I think we're going to see more of this, right? And we've talked about this in other areas. When we talked about this with the defund the police stuff, you're going to see a natural resorting, a reselection happening. If a locale like Seattle, if they don't want police, they want to fire everybody and send them away. Okay, well, it's a terrible thing for those officers who have committed their time to that agency. They've sunk a lot of time into their communities and built families there and all of that. But if that city doesn't want them anymore and another city does, well, it's in their interest to pick up and move and go over there. And that's just part of the beautiful thing of this country. It's the laboratory of democracy that we have in the various states, and people have the ability to get up and move. People got up and moved and went on the Oregon Trail where they lost 3/4 of their family, And so if you're in a city that's not treating you well, or you're in a country that's not treating you well, maybe it's time to pick up and move and go somewhere else that is going to treat you well. And that's what's going to happen to this entire country if they continue to look down upon the people who make the gears move. And I think we're seeing a lot of that, and it's not going to stop until they realize that they're not getting any more mileage out of it. Wolfgang Deo says, Hitler isn't racist anymore. Well, according to Whoopi, that's true. Yeah, ask Whoopi Goldberg. She agrees with that. We had another one from Jeffrey Rock says, the elites are much like 1943 Germany. They thought that they were strong enough to reach Moscow, and they made their move. They've lost already, but we're about to see what they do as the Ruskies close in on Berlin. That's from Jeffrey Rock. Oh, Rook. Very interesting one there from Jeffrey Rook. The elites are much like the 1943 Germany. They thought they were strong enough to reach Moscow, and they made their move. They've lost already, and we're about to see what they do as the Ruskies close in on Berlin. Oh, that's good. That's like out of a graphic novel. I like that. And that was from Jeffrey Rock. Let's see what else we've got on locals before we wrap it up for the day. A couple more are coming in. Let's see. Oh, former LEO says I skipped over some comments, which I don't know if I did. It's because I kind of screwed this up, I think. All right, so I'm just going to pick up back here. Okay, because I got a lot of these. Okay, that was from Kells Bells. Miss Lucky says, Sergeant Bob, City... Nope, got that one. Okay, Monster One says, the fact that a member of the government can say what that last woman said is insane, which is true. I felt that way listening to most of these people. Robute says, Councilor Meehan is a fascist who doesn't want anyone defying her and wants a final solution for the truckers. I think that's right. That sounds right. We have another one from Bittersweet says, have they thought about talking with them? No, Bev Johnson has. She's on the city council, but not everybody else wants to talk to them. Justin Trudeau said that they're terrorists, and they don't negotiate with terrorists. Tweak says, haha, a year ago, the left wanted to defund the police. And now they're crying for the government to call in the SS. It's a good point. Yeah. Now they're all begging. I'm begging you. I'm begging. Please. I can't help. I can't sleep. Hand of Nod says, Rob, the city councilors remind me of a claim by Drexel, Ricada's friend. I know who Drexel is. Drexel claimed women tend to vote along their biological imperatives, safety and security. I see evidence of this claim in the councilors' hysterics. I hope and pray for the Freedom Truckers to carefully hold the line, de-escalate, and maximally mock the authoritarians with grace and skill. Also, though the Freedom Convoy is amazing, it is important to remain aware of other developments in the world. Maintain vigilance. Good comment there from Hand of Nod. Thank you for that, Hand of Nod. Yeah, there are other things to talk about, certainly, and I know we've been spending a lot of time on the truckers, but this is kind of an important one. And so I will, of course, continue to follow this, but I am watching some other interesting things because we're seeing stuff heat up with Ukraine. Jake Sullivan was out over the weekend. I think he went to Oxford, not Harvard, and he said there could be an attack at any minute. So there's a lot of stuff going on. Keeping tabs on all of it. One Tough Chick says, I've been watching Viva's stream and all I've seen is freedom-loving people and unity. That's what I've seen. It reminds me more of a block party than a protest. As someone who lived in St. Paul, Minnesota during the, quote, mostly peaceful protests from May 27 to 29, 2020, where we experienced mass arson, vandalism, looting, and violence in my city, as well as Minneapolis, the response to the Freedom Truckers is ludicrous. I guess honking your horn and running your vehicle is more egregious than burning businesses to the ground and violence towards the police. Now we know. So that is a beautiful comment. And I'm so grateful that you're here, One Tough Chick. Right? This is an example. Somebody who was in both worlds on the outskirts of Minneapolis when that was going back on in May 2020. And now watching what's happening there in Viva streams, right? You can compare and you were there. Yeah, and it's not close to reality. Thunder 7 says, the truckers paid for a huge sign above the highway so every vehicle could see it. It said, Amber Alert. Looking for black-faced PM Canada, unknown location, has fake COVID. Can you imagine, Rob, that Trudeau is so afraid of his own citizens that he's literally on the run? Funny how he wasn't afraid of BLM that were violent and killed dozens of people. These lunatic left Marxists are truly nuts, and everyone is watching them melt down in real time. It feels like a meltdown to me, right? They literally are like begging. Kelly Selnow says, if there was an actual insurrection, the heads of these tyrants would literally explode, right? Thank you for that, Kelly. That's kind of my whole point on this thing. It's like, these are leaders. Like, what if there was a real emergency? Like, what if a big bomb goes off or like the country is actually under attack? Or like COVID. Right now, look, I was not paying attention to Ottawa during the COVID, but I imagine that many of the city council meetings were exactly like this. Well, we're losing everything. Shut it all. Right? Psycho people that can't lead anything are in charge. Tim Flynn says, it seems like the police chief has been rightfully mocking the council person by stating that if the protest is as she characterized it, then it is beyond the capabilities of the police department and is a job for Delta Force or the Canadian equivalent. So I've seen that take, Tim Flynn. I'm not sure that I agree with it. I've seen other people saying like that maybe this police chief is just like mocking them, you know? Like Diane's out there, this is an insurrection, our country's under attack. And he's like, I know. Yes, Diane, it is under attack. Yeah, I know. Very insurrectionary. I know. Yes, Diane, you're right. It's the worst attack in history. Yeah. And we're working on it, Diane. We're doing everything we can. So just take it easy. I don't think so. I think he believes it. I don't think he's just sort of, playing one off with them. C. Wolf says, Speaking of the QAnon shaman, my initial impression was that he might have been a provocateur to make the Trump folks look bad, or maybe he was manipulated by folks akin to the Ray Epps types. I guess that none of that was the case. Further, why is nobody investigating QAnon? The fact that nobody is looking into it is highly suspect. It is a good one. I don't know. I didn't spend too much time in on that one, but it is curious how a lot of that just kind of evaporated. We have Feisty Lady says, very interesting news release posted on the Convoy's Facebook page about an hour ago in support of the truckers. It's rather long, but the signatories are fascinating. I'll post a link for you to look over. The organization is called Police on Guard for Thee. And this is great. Okay, so let's see what this is. This is a web page, policeonguard.ca. We can see here we've got make the following statement based on for nearly 2 weeks. Many of the undersigned are still present. Here's what we're doing. We're providing meals, tidying the streets, assisting business owners. There's overwhelming evidence to substantiate what we have witnessed, right? We've seen that all in the live streams. Corporate media coverage is disgusting. The government's decision to block refueling of the trucks puts fellow Canadians and their families, including their young children, in danger. Spirit of the protest is peace. If Canada is democratic, we call on our elected members to engage in meaningful dialogue consistent with their charters and freedoms. Unjustly labeling those as protesters as terrorist, racist, and misogynist is unacceptable. Signed by Police on Guard, Mounties for Freedom, Stand Up for Canada, Take Action Canada, Mama Bears, Police for Freedom, Vaccine Choice Canada, Derek Sloan, Dean Allison, Randy Hillier, Belinda, lots of names on here. We got former chief and grand chief of Ontario. Ooh. New Blue Party. So a lot of people have signed off on that. Yeah, that's an interesting link. Thanks for sharing that. That came over from Feisty Lady. Former LEO says, don't you love me anymore? You skipped over a bunch of my comments. I didn't mean to if I did that. PWSMKAZ says, we got a quote from Sol Schnitzen, says, if it were only so simple, if it were the evil people somewhere insidiously committing evil deeds, and if it were necessary only to separate them from the rest of us and destroy them. I'm sorry, let me do this again because I screwed this up. If only it were if only it were all so simple. If only there were evil people somewhere insidiously committing evil deeds, and it were necessary only to separate them from the rest of us and destroy them. But the line dividing good and evil cuts through the heart of every human being. And who is willing to destroy a piece of his own heart? Alexander Sol Schnitzen. Good comment there. Monster One says the South Park guys made Basketball. Moneyball is a baseball movie. Yeah, so I think that's the one I was thinking of. Basketball. Basketball was the one I was thinking of. Definitely, I've not seen either one of those. Monster One says, Rob, racist just means it goes against the narrative. Remember, people like Larry Elder, Candace Owens, and Clarence Thomas are supposedly white supremacists. Yeah. Well, we talked about this back during the January 6th protests. Remember when they called it multiracial whiteness? There's an actual article about this. Put that into Google or Bing or whatever, and you'll see multiracial whiteness. There's a Washington Post article about this saying that it's weird. Trump supporters are all racist, but it's weird. He had, a lot of black people and Hispanic people and other demographics who supported him. Why is that? Well, it's because they were multiracial white supremacists. Not a joke. Miss Lucky says, Sergeant Bob says, I did not go to traffic court once in Canada. One addresses the judge as your worship, not your honor. Okay, yeah, so your worship, right? Your worship, not your honor. Different mechanics there. Thanks for that. Another Solzhenitsyn quote says, Rob, you only have the power over people as long as they don't take everything away from them. You only have power over people as long as you don't take everything away from them. But when you've robbed a man of everything, he's no longer in your power. He's free again. Yeah, there's a good sort of book about that. It's called The Count of Monte Cristo. It's a very interesting book, long book, but a good one. There was that was Basketball, Rob, from Sasha. Seawolf says, I'd like to see some income statements for the last 2 months of this Meehan lady. I'll bet I could find some explanations for her hyperventilating, delusions, and hysteria. Yeah, I'm not so sure. They make good money up there, like well into the six figures. John Delar says, what is the polling for this like in Canada? How much support are they getting? I'm not getting notifications for this in my email anymore. I just noticed this on YouTube and came here. I don't know why that might be. Monster. So I don't know what the polling is in Canada, but Surely somebody does. Monster One says, someone should go into the Capitol and steal all of Trudeau's shoe polish. You know, so he can't do blackface anymore. And our last one of the day is from Heather, says, so if they arrest all the truckers, who is going to move all the trucks? Not sure they have an impound lot big enough to house all the confiscated trucks. Yeah, and they don't have any fuel to move those trucks either, so they're going to have to put them on flatbeds. Not sure how that's going to function. Big semis. All right, my friends. And so those were the questions that came in from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. If I missed you, it was not intentional, former LEO. I opened several tabs because what happens is when I open the tabs, the comments comes in and it pushes some onto the next page. But if I already read that page and I go to the next page and I refresh that page, well, then I'm going to miss the comments that got moved over into the next page. So I got to do like multiple. I got to figure it out. I'm still working on it. I'm a work in progress. But it's going to get better day by day, and I appreciate your support. And so that, my friends, is it for us for the day. I want to welcome some new supporters over on Locals. We've got Kay Talking, we've got C. Reed, Dante Picante, True Blue Truckers in the house, along with It's All Alley. Short Time Here, Richard's The Real, Lovely Gemini, Wonder Girl 30, C. Jones, John, One Tough Chick, Frank MC 42. We got Ion Energy, Wild Child, Alaskan 4 Trump, AZ Grayman, and Mr. Shields. We've got some YouTube shout outs that will be updated tomorrow, I promise. Mr. J Bug, we've got Blue Bunny, Ricky Bishop is here, Henry Dixon signed up, along with Wolfgang Deo, and those are all new members at that shout out level. And I'm trying to figure out some more, benefits that I can sort of tier out. The membership program is going to, evolve also, and I'm going to more, not less, more, but I'm trying to figure out how to do it. And so thank you for supporting the show. Thank you for supporting the channel. Thank you so much for hitting the like button before you get out of here. If you're not already a subscriber, I'd appreciate it if you joined us, because we do this live show every weekday and it's a lot of fun. But that is it for us for the day. We're going to leave it right there. We're going to come back tomorrow and do it all again. 4 p.m. Arizona, which is Mountain, 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. on the East Coast for that one Florida man. Everybody else, have a tremendous evening. Sleep very well. Stay warm out there. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.